Welcome to Roll DX. I'm Duhad. Joining me today is Colonel DeFrog,
It isn't easy being green.
Morath,
Hello there.
and Tenma Ranger.
Token female!
Today we're here to talk about role-playing games, or more specifically, role-playing systems. All of us are big role players. I think all of us have run at least one or two games. And if you've run at least a couple of games, you start developing systems that you really like or systems you really don't like. I believe earlier, Tim, you were telling me you actually had some pretty strong feelings about D20.
D20, specifically Dungeons and Dragons, and how I actually really hate that system.
Interesting. It's the probably the most iconic role-playing game in the world, and yeah, I hate it too. I really don't like that game system.
It's funny because I started out playing it. I was a 3.0 player starting out. I know a lot of people go and have a very low devotion to 2.0.
Yeah.
But 3.0 and played it all the way to 4th ed, and I have to say it's just, I don't think it's very flexible as a system when I started to actually branch out and do other systems like Unisystem or D6.
Okay, I have a question here.
Go ahead.
Are you speaking purely from the point of Dungeons and Dragons, or are you incorporating GURPS as well? Because
GURPS is a D6 system.
So
not GURPS.
D20 Modern?
D20 Modern. They've got a expanded D20 as well. It's
I'm
just
more
like,
talking about Dungeons and Dragons, though. I kind of Frog and I had actually a pretty bad experience with something that wasn't Dungeons and Dragons and was D20 ran.
Oh, what was that?
Boy.
Oh.
That was actually the DC Adventures game.
Ah.
And which is, for those who don't know, a actual extrapolation of the Mutants and Masterminds rule. It's essentially Mutants and Masterminds 3.0.
It's a role-playing game based on superheroes.
Yeah. And it actually really kind of highlights the problem with D20 systems, in that by the way, I'm not a big fan of D20. Let's just get that right out there. I hadn't weighed in on there yet, at least I think. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of D20 because D20 is a system, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, that is too rules heavy for my taste. It's very, very easy to understand, and that's probably its greatest strength. What with, for every number you're on there, 5% chance, yada, yada, yada. The D20 is very good for giving yourself a nice statistical breakdown.
Right.
Which I think, is a thing that has its worth in wargaming.
But doesn't quite,
It doesn't give me the run for money. And D20 systems, by virtue of the simple, easy rules, by and large, go ahead and get built up very, very large.
Right.
Because a person thinks, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And
then,
as a D20 system gets larger, it becomes more and more likely to be unbalanced.
Like Dungeons and Dragons, especially with like 3.5, it just got so bogged down with things.
well,
And
are you talking about
conflicting rules?
Rules. And
this is just endemic to the system, because as you start to add rules upon it, the simplicity starts to choke and sputter. And because of the way that D20 often is presented, with it being so easy to add these rules, suddenly the rules start to restrict character choices.
Hold on, just for clarification's sake, are we talking about the core books here, or are we talking about the ridiculous library of expansions?
I'm talking about the
ridiculous
whole thing,
library.
because
Right.
it really isn't a discussion of D20 unless you start to look at everything that's involved with D20.
Yeah,
D20, if you just take a core book, is generally pretty easy to understand and to play. The problem is, because of the whole D20 being the basis of the open game license, everyone and their mother has gone ahead and made a D20 book.
Right.
and added in a new thing, and they're all supposed to be able to work together in general terms, and in fact they are because of the way that the rules work, but it becomes very top-heavy and just collapses under its own weight.
And
Which
also,
ends up leading to the rule lawyers who've
Yeah.
read so many of these books that they are able to pull out just all sorts of random bylaws and
Yes, exactly.
oddities.
And the problem being, because this many rules have gone there, it's become pandering to the rules lawyers just by going ahead and making so many of these.
and what I was trying to say here is I have noticed that actually, specifically with Dungeons and Dragons, it does have a huge culture of min-maxing and rules lawyering. I think I've only been in like one Dungeons and Dragons campaign that wasn't run by one of those, and that was at our college with Mike.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Mike had his own special way of running D20.
Yeah. We should also note here that Mike's game wasn't 3.5, it was 4.0, which is a different beast than the primary D20 that people talk about. 4.0, while it had a lot of similarities, was also much more gamey. And if you remember earlier, I was talking about how the statistic probability distribution has its own place in wargaming.
Right.
Well, what if going on a bit of a tangent here, but D20 evolved out of Chainmail, which was originally a war game, and it brought it down to the single unit level, and it grew and evolved from there. At that point, statistics were very important because the tactics were what really mattered. But once you go ahead and just choose one person, it becomes a question of choice and ability to go ahead and really make your character do what you want them to do. I might have gotten a little mix up here in my train of thought, but let me see if I can salvage it some.
Go ahead. So, I think the general consensus here, unless Morath, are you a
4E?
4E, yeah.
4E, by bringing the whole actions that your character goes ahead and does, including the at-will actions. For those of you who have not been introduced to 4.0 or skipped over it entirely, the way it works is you have a number of actions that your character class gives you, and you choose which ones you have, and they are rated as either at will, encounter, or daily. Now, daily is, of course, the most powerful, but you get to use it once per day. And should you, not hit with it, well, it's wasted, unless it's got a specific little modifier on it. Same thing with encounter power. You get to use it once per encounter. Whereas the at-will powers go ahead and, let you do something a little bit more special than just, I hit him with my sword or I hit him with my axe. And you can use them no matter what. Which actually had the
effect of...
Yes, thank you. The effect of going ahead and completely making the basic attack almost worthless, except as a tag-on that you add to some other attacks. Like, you use this ability to get somewhere, and it lets you make a standard attack at the end. And that was about the only time you'd ever use it, because otherwise, your abilities, your at-will abilities, would be more powerful. But you see, the thing about this set of abilities, which a lot of people got very pissed off about, because if I'm a swordsman, why shouldn't I be able to use that one ability that, why am I restricted, spell-wise for it? And it's a legitimate point. You can only do this one time. It's, kind of your big thing for the day, yada yada. That's not how sword technique works. But what it did do is it went ahead and gave the people who weren't doing magic an actual choice in battle, which is something that, frankly, D20 and especially Dungeons and Dragons is horrifically lacking in. Now,
if you're playing a warrior or a non-spellcaster, you may be more you can be significantly more effective than the spellcasters if you're doing it right, especially at earlier levels. But essentially, all you're doing is just saying, I attack with a much better attack. I attack with a much better attack. I continue to attack with a much better attack.
Right. Now, there are some things that you can go ahead and do, like sundering, which is destroying the enemy's weapons, or disarms, or trips, and that kind of stuff. but it's a very limited system. And as my fellow casters know, I very much enjoy swords. I have practiced with swords. I do know something about what I'm talking about here. Mashing the A button is not how a sword fight works.
Oh,
Really?
That's how a sword fight works. We
Oh
all know
my
that.
god, video games have lied to me this entire time!
Kingdoms of
No!
Amalur would not agree with you there, sir. Actually,
Kingdoms of
they have
Amalur is an entirely different thing, and that's getting onto the video game. But the fact of the matter is, in a sword fight, if I really want to feel like I'm playing a, sword master, I should be able to choose which way I'm going to attack with my sword. And this is actually endemic to a lot of role-playing systems because, frankly, not many people really do get swords anymore, and frankly, a lot more people can't be bothered to care. They just think, I'm going to swing my sword wide and cut everything.
Hold on. To be fair here, part of this is because if you really do want to have really good sword fighting rules in the RPG, it becomes overcomplicated. Yeah, for most people,
it does.
It's sort of unnecessary.
This is all well and good. And, down that way lies grappling rule madness.
Oh, God.
And I know full well about that.
But yeah,
playing a sword fighter essentially is just I roll the dice and I see what statistic I get. That's well and good in a war game because of the fact that you're shaping the battlefield by going ahead and choosing multiple units and using them and putting them in the right positions. But when you got the one person, combat gets awful boring.
Yeah,
awful
I'm
fast,
kind of thinking,
which is a reason why I almost never play anything but a spellcaster when I do play, 3.5 or Pathfinder, which is essentially 3.75.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And yeah, I'm sort of thinking about it, and I'm thinking, I know there are people who do legitimately enjoy like playing the warrior class in D&D and stuff, but until you get to higher levels and you start getting interesting abilities, or unless you have a really good GM who can make that sort of thing, really interesting for you, most of the time, the most excitement you're getting is seeing how high you can get those stat bonuses up to. And unless, that's if that's your thing, then more power to you, but it's not mine.
Goes ahead and just goes into the whole overbearance of the rules.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want me to...
And the culture of kind of min-maxing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I don't mean to cut you off, except I totally do, because we've been on the subject for a while, and I can already tell that we've lost the entirety of our, D&D loving fan base. So why don't we
hate D&D? No, we don't hate it. We're just not.
We're not wild about it. Now.
Yeah.
Let's.
We've had good D&D games.
Now let's switch gears from to hate to something a little closer to love here. I know that you have a special soft spot in your heart for what was it, Storyteller?
Yes, Storyteller. Actually, yeah. The White Wolf storytelling system. Rolling D10s. I think we've all played it at least once.
This is the World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade or Requiem. Is this Old World of Darkness or New World of Darkness?
I'm specifically talking about. Well, specifically, the thing I wanted to bring up is Exalted 2.5 came out.
So not Old or New World of Darkness, Exalted.
Well, it's the same. It's the same system essentially, but it's not lore-wise any of the World of Darkness. But that does bring up an interesting point, though.
Go on.
The system itself is undergoing a lot of changes.
Really?
Yes. There was I looked at the new Exalted stuff very, very briefly. I didn't get the chance to hold on to it long. And there is no set proper build anymore.
I see. Hold on. Before you go any further, why don't you give us a quick rundown of what Exalted is? I think most of us can reasonably, figure out what D&D is at this point. But why don't you clarify Exalted for us?
Exalted is a system, one of the White Wolf systems. And let me first start there. The White Wolf system is where you have attribute dice and ability dice. You combine the two, and these can be mixed and matched. And then you roll for it. You roll the number of d10s that the attributes and abilities add up to, and anything from 7 to 9 is one success, and
And the
10
number of
is
dice
two
you.
successes. Yeah.
So you roll a big pool of dice based on your attributes and your skills, or your attributes and talents, and whatever. However many of those come up as 7, 8, or 9s, you add +1. You add a 1 to your success pool, and all the 10s add 2 points to the success pool.
Yes, and that's going against like how difficult it is to do something.
Okay.
In World of Darkness, they tend to be a lot higher than they are in Exalted.
Really?
Yeah, well, because Exalts can do things easy. Exalted are people who, you see, originally there were Yozis, which were the people, which were basically the Titans of Greek mythology. In this mythology, then there were the gods.
Right.
And the gods made an army by giving little shards of godhood to mortals.
Okay.
After that, and these people have been influencing the world as it is.
The Titans, the gods, are the people with the parts of gods in them.
Well, they made the people with the parts of gods. The gods made the people with the parts of gods in them.
No, I picked out that. I mean, like, who's been affecting the world?
They made them to fight off the Titans.
Right. Okay. So, but who's been affecting the world? Is it the gods or the Titans, or is it
the Exalts?
Okay.
The Exalts mostly.
Okay, and they're the guys with the shards of gods in them, right?
Yes.
Just clarifying everything. Okay. Go ahead.
The Exalts have been influencing each other mostly, and the largest power is the realm of the dragon-blooded.
Okay.
It gets complicated after that, and I just won't go into it because we'll be here for 6 hours.
Yeah, it gets complicated. We're not really here for lore.
Oh God.
We're more here for system.
But you play as one of these people with the shard of godhood in them.
Okay.
So obviously you start out the game better than everybody else who isn't one of you.
Okay, so it's a super powered game, if not traditional superhero game.
Yeah. And you get these things called charms, which influence your rolls, or even add a bit of flavor to actions that you do. Well, they always do that, but they also either allow you to do something or allow you to do something better.
Huh. Okay.
My favorite one is called Duck Fate, which is a defense that you can dodge anything, even sexually transmitted diseases.
And how often does that actually come up? I mean, I don't want to,
depends on the game that you're in, Duhad.
Oh God, this is why I don't like playing with your friends.
It depends on which kind of sidereal you are.
Oh Lord.
If you're one of the Chosens of Serenity, then you basically screw everything on 2 legs. But
Mel?
What?
Mel? Sorry, firefly joke.
Yes. Oh yeah. But no. It allows you to dodge anything, even things that are undodgeable. So, it's a very good system, and the invulnerability always has a flaw.
Okay.
So that makes
it.
So,
I'd hope so.
Yeah.
That'd be really, really lame if you were totally invincible constantly.
I actually did run into a White Wolf game that, sadly got ignored. That you remember how we were talking earlier about the no choice for a warrior thing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
White Wolf actually did go ahead and give us a system that does a decent job of adding in a level of choose your ability and hope that it stacks up right.
Really?
And that was actually the Street Fighter role-playing game.
Seriously?
I do remember that, actually.
Yeah,
it's cool.
It works on the old World of Darkness system, and you go ahead and you choose a specific action to do, and you have, of course, your health, you have your ability to block and to tank damage, and all sorts of very normal stuff. But the techniques that you use have different priorities. So when the two are fighting together, one of them is going to get their technique out first because it's faster, also modified by initiative roll, and that's part of how the techniques go off. And it'll do a certain amount of damage, yada yada. and different ones can be used back and forth. But you also have a resource called Focus, which you can burn off to switch to another attack to essentially make a counter. One of which is, of course, block, so you can always go, oh shit, that huge attack's incoming towards me, burn Focus, go to block, which has a much higher priority. And this actually let you get the kind of, should I choose punch, should I choose a kick, whatever. And you can use it for a melee combat system, and one of the few that I actually saw work. I actually haven't, unfortunately, gotten the chance to either play in one of these games, because, well, no one's running this one, or run this game, but White Wolf actually occasionally throws out the real thing of choice there. Now, of course, there is the downside to White Wolf, and this one is one that everyone's probably familiar with, especially in Exalted Morath, and that's the fact that you do end up generally with very large dice pools.
Well, it still makes you feel epic, though. That's the one thing I do like about Exalted.
Right, but it does go ahead and slow down gameplay.
Oh, yeah.
Also, it can cut into your wallet if you happen to not want to buy 50 10-sided die.
Amen to that.
Well, that's what
don't buy the
internet
expensive
rollers
ones.
are
Yeah.
Anyone who uses an internet roller is no longer a gamer and should burn in hell.
I should burn in hell.
Yeah, actually, I think I've encouraged tons and tons of people
We even
to use
had the
dice
same
rollers
problem. Yeah, we even had the same problem with what was it, D10, because its dice are loaded.
For God's sake, yeah. Now, Colonel's dice are
Evil.
absolutely ridiculous.
Though, to be fair, Morath, you and D6. Oh boy.
Yeah, no, I hate all of you. My dice just consistently roll between the 1 and 5 range.
Duhad? At least it's not the 1 and 3 like Tenma.
Yeah,
True.
The reason why I went to an online dice roller is because I would actually get even results, not random fails.
Fair.
What do you mean random? Don't you mean consistent?
Consistent failures.
So, Morath, just to finish up with Exalted, would you advise Exalted as a good system for people to pick up? And if so, would you consider it as a good system for new players or more one for experienced players?
I actually didn't start out with it, but it was one of the first ones I played after leaving our college. It's a good one for beginners in that your results are obvious right from the get-go.
Okay.
When you roll the dice, if you see any sevens and any sevens and tens,
you can pretty much just look at the pile of dice and know exactly whether you succeeded or not. Yeah.
It also makes you feel awesome, and it has a system for rewarding you for getting beyond the "I hit it with my axe."
Well,
that
is good.
Definitely the best part of Exalted.
Yeah.
I should toss in here that technically Exalted was my first system back in 1E for it.
Oh. Well, there you go.
But I highly suggest going 2.5.
2.5.
It's much more balanced. They don't have a set build order. I mean, eventually they'll come out with one on the forums, but I mean, right now there isn't one.
Yeah, 1.0 could get awfully confusing when it came to character creation. That is one of the problems with any choice system, and an argument, as much as we just ragged on D20, an argument for a simpler, this is how you progress system. Sometimes you can really either cripple yourself or not cripple yourself, but not fun for your party if you become the most overpowered thing ever. And builds can get a little weird there.
So, Frog, you've had quite a lot to say on the two subjects we've already touched on. I don't suppose you actually
have quite a lot to say on everything.
Well, in that case, maybe you might have quite a lot to say about a system that you really like or dislike.
Okay, I already did bring this one up, and this is a system that I played in first for a real heavy, went through an actual campaign. And it's also the first system I actually GM'd. And that is West End Games D6. Now, this thing is no longer in print. And
tragic.
Geek alert, and on, this
Yeah.
particularly
Even on a
large.
show about role-playing games.
Yeah, Geek
Oh,
Alert. It
no.
is the version that I do is the Star Wars system.
Yes.
Now, as our viewers have probably guessed,
Star Wars. Everyone loves Star Wars.
High
Yeah.
five, internet high five. Let's go.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so as my fellow casters know full well, and as you guys have probably picked up, I'm not particularly a big fan of heavy rule systems, which is part of the reason why I like Star Wars so much. I am a big proponent of the perennial Rule Zero that you see in role-playing books. And Rule Zero, for those that don't know, or however it gets called in the book, is this. These rules are just here to try and make an outline for the game fun. If necessary, we pop them off and make the game work otherwise.
Because fun is the
D6
ultimate goal.
Yes, D6 is a lot closer to that. They go ahead and they reiterate in the book a number of times to go ahead and just set a target number, have them roll for it. That's the simplest thing there. You don't need to really get into the scatter charts, though they've got them, or how much explosive readiness that thermal detonator, grenade, whatever has. Just set a target number and go for it. Which is pretty much how I run, and as all three of these people have been in a D6 game that I've run. I go ahead and I just say, okay, here's a target number. Let's try and make it so the game is exciting and fun. And I do find that it's a very good one for just being very simple. A lot like Exalted is. It lets you decide and say, this is what I want to do with my dice. Okay, I'm going to roll the dice skill that I have for it. What did I get? That's how it is. That's just straight out how the core of D6, that's really how I find that just about any role-playing system should be run, assuming that the DM trusts their players and the players trust the DM, which unfortunately doesn't happen as much as it should.
Fair enough. Yeah, and
Future
it's
episode
long
topic.
rant, probably future episode on that.
Yeah, future episode topic, GMing.
Yeah.
Trusting your
GMing.
players.
Future series of episodes.
Oh yeah,
right
god,
there.
yeah, that's a big topic.
Yeah.
I'd asked you about the setting, but you already said it's
Star
Star
Wars.
Wars. It's Star Wars.
Well, can I go into that a minute?
Actually, yeah. And there is some interesting history with West End here.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because everyone does know that Star Wars has this massive expanded universe. It mostly started with the West End games.
Yeah. But I'm going to go into the D6 system itself and say, I don't know if it came first or after the Star Wars, but there was a Xena and Hercules
yeah.
game, which actually those two coupled with the Star
With the-
Wars
yeah.
may have a very, very active community.
Yes, they do.
The dueling blades thing that was written by I think it was one of the guys who actually worked for West End.
Yeah, no, that was official. It was originally made for Hercules, brought over to Xena, and easily adapted to Star Wars because, lightsabers.
Yes.
That was actually a really good system, and as you guys remember, Morath, Duhad, I actually did bring that one in for a while. When, we actually had lightsaber combat going on.
Huh. Fair enough. Yeah,
Any sort of blade
I
combat.
didn't really notice, but
I'm later moved away from it simply for streamlighting's sake because it could get you caught up in very long blade duels. But for any climactic blade duel, it was great. It was really a very interesting system that rewarded having greater skill than the enemy, more so than just I damaged them, but also pushing back and forth, all that kind of stuff. Very, very good system.
I like the opposing roles aspect of that.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, D6 always had that, but it was the fact that a marginal success gave you a better advantage on the later rolls was something that I really liked, because it did simulate the back and forth nature of taking the initiative in a sword fight.
instead of having the whole
But
thing
like I
just being
said,
every time.
you could go ahead and get bogged down in things, so when it wasn't necessary, I did kind of pull it out later on.
I mean,
But
I think
it was a good system.
I think any system can get bogged down by the rules if you let it.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Even the simplest and lightest system in the world, if you let the rules guide it completely, will inevitably just end up becoming, ungainly and weird, just because any rule can, like, even the most lax and simple rule can become just this ridiculous thing if you try and make it, the be-all, end-all, thing that everything has to play off of. Like, even just a rule as simple as you have to roll a dice in order to determine a skill. If you make the players roll for every single thing they do, even
Please,
if that's the only rule in the
GMs
game.
out there, never, ever, ever do that.
Oh God, it gets annoying. Like, hey, roll for this. Why?
Yeah,
Okay,
I played in games. As a rule of thumb, if the player, as a regular human being who's just totally normal, can do it without even thinking about it, like someone tosses him a phone and he just catches it, that shouldn't be something you roll for. There should never be a situation, and I've been in these situations where it's like, okay, I tossed the baseball over to my friends, like, okay, roll for it. You don't know if you drop it or possibly smack yourself in the face with it.
Let me roleplay
we
that
have to
out.
determine this.
Detail, folks.
Now,
Let me roleplay that out.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Just to go back to the D20 thing, there was something interesting about the D20 system there.
Oh?
You did have the ability to take 10 or take 20, depending on the speed of the action. You couldn't do it for, like, combat or anything, but, like, for a skill use, if you had an adequate amount of time, you could take 10, or if it was simple enough, you could take 10. If you had an adequate enough time, you can take 20.
Essentially just going like, okay, if you want to just take your default average, we'll accept that instead of rolling the dice and getting anywhere between 1 and 20, you just take a borderline of 10, and if you have enough time to work on it that you can just continually try and fail, you're eventually going to hit 20 if you just roll the dice 100 million times, so, to hell with it, just take 20.
Don't get me wrong, it's a good rule, but it strikes me as putting a rule in a place where there doesn't exactly need to be one. Because of the fact that, taking 10, you take the average of your thing, you add your bonuses, you see what you can do with it, and you take, the basic amount of time, and this is only if you're non-threatened, like we put it out there.
Yeah.
So, that's fine and all, but that really gets into me in the automatic success range, because the GM at that point should know whether the player can do it or not. They've got the sheets, they know the difficulty, they know whether it should be able to be done or not.
Yes.
And, it's one of those things that, it has its place, but it's a rule that doesn't exactly need to be. It's, I'm going to do this. Okay, are you going to take 10 on it? Well, I don't know exactly how much time I'm going to need. I don't know exactly how hard it is.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's one of those rules that actually adds to why it's such an easy system to start out with, though.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it doesn't have its place. I'm just saying that it really can be covered in most situations by automatic success.
I mean, and, like Greg says, this is to kind of go and restructure D20 again. It really is an easy system to pick up. It was one of my first systems to pick up. It was the first system that I actually GM'd as a person, but
game master.
Yeah, as a game master. Sorry.
It's okay.
But because it's easy. The rules are pretty simple if you just go by basic rules. But unfortunately, the kind of huge codexes of rules.
There are a lot of rules.
I do enjoy the Forgotten Realms lore. I will say that.
To be fair, on the D10, the take 10, take 20 thing, I do agree for the most part with Colonel, but I would put in one caveat, and that is that for really newbie GMs and players, where people are really just kind of getting their feet under them with this stuff, having that as a rule of thumb, so that like the GM who's really experienced this are like, I don't know. I mean, you're trying to do this thing. I'm not sure whether I should have you try and make it a roll because it's super duper easy. It allows the player to basically
it's
say, okay, it's it's
Yeah.
fair. I'm just going to say I'm just going to take 10, and because it's easy and because of all these bonuses, I just succeed. And the GM's like, oh, okay, the problem solved.
Okay. To be fair, I think we should clarify something, and this is going to sound a little big-heady, but here at Roll DX, we are kind of looking at it from the advanced role player standard. I kind of hate to say that, but that's really where it is. All of us have either, GM'd, we've played in plenty of games. We kind of get the, we're in the point where we don't feel like we need our hand being held.
And
which is one of the reasons why D20 is so good, because it does hold your hand in certain ways when it's simple. And we don't particularly, for the most part, enjoy the game of trying to put together the most powerful thing by using all the rules together.
And that's fair. And
that's what my wargaming time is for,
And in fact, some of us like to put out nerfed characters that aren't really great.
Yes,
those are
that
fun.
that comes more into styles of play, which I think we will try and do later on.
Oh hell yes!
Yeah, but for right now,
future topic.
We're gonna switch over the topic real quick. Before we move on from what was supposed to be discussion of West End's D6.
Yes.
I know that people can't really buy it anymore. I know that it's not really generally available. But on the off chance that someone does happen to, stumble upon this in a bookstore, which I know you actually have done before. Okay, you pick it up. Would you recommend this to newbie players or just experienced players?
Like I said, this was essentially my second gaming system. So yeah, I would recommend it to newbie players. It's definitely one of the ones that it's good for a newbie if the newbie is imagination heavy. If the newbie really needs their hand held to go ahead and newbie, both players and GMs, by the way, on this one.
Okay.
If you've got the imagination, if you're willing to fill in the world a lot with your mind, this is definitely a system for you, and it can be used for anything. It doesn't just have to be Star Wars. That's what the lore is for, but you can pull out the actual attribute system and use it.
Sorry, hold on. I'm going to have to cut you off there. We've been recording for about 37 minutes now, and I think it's about time we take a little break. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Sounds good.